We got sued because there's an agency which had a trademark on the word banana in India, which in itself seems pretty shocking to me. You rather have 10% of a large company than 100% of a very small company, right?
Are there any downsides of having a co-founder other than sharing your equity?
No, zero.
Zero.
Yeah. The idea you have will mean nothing. It's the execution, it's the reaction to the market, which is going to be important.
But how does someone get good at sales?
So if you have a bad product and if you got an extremely good website, कुछ नहीं होगा, तुम्हारा धंधा बंद हो जाएगा. India is not good for design. Engineering तो कर लेते हैं, पर creative people are not from India.
Hi, Kavan. Welcome to the Fueled Unfiltered. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for having me. You've got a beautiful setup.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Kavan, I want to begin by asking you to give an introduction about yourself for people who might not know you. So what do you do? What is Indiefolio? How did it start? What does it do, first of all?
So I run a company called Indiefolio. Essentially, we are challenging the traditional creative agency model, where today, if you look at all platforms, the biggest stay company doesn't have any hotels. The biggest car company doesn't have any cars. So when we were like looking at creative as a sector or agency as a space, we were like, why can't there be an agency which doesn't employ any creative talent full time, but leverages a distributed workforce of independent professionals and studios and centralizes them as an experience for clients? So that's what we do. In a simple term, we are disrupting the traditional creative agency operating model, and we strive to be better, faster, and cheaper than them.
So what's the revenue model of Indiefolio exactly? And I think it's a little risky because I checked out your website and it says assurance of an agency and the price of a freelancer.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
When you talk about assurance, right, an agency can provide an assurance because of their business teams, their servicing teams, who are consistent for the client, right? Where there is one person who's understanding their brand, their category, their user, building a relationship. So after a month or two, they understand what works for this company or not. We also have a centralized in-house layer of project managers, servicing people, account managers, sales people, who sit on top of a large pool of freelancers. Now, freelancers are great. I've been a freelancer, and we'll talk about this. Since my 8th grade, I've been freelancing. So they're great with speed, with variety. But assurance is a big challenge with them, because if you are just using a freelance model as a company, you may have to hire different people, different times. And then it gets very difficult for you to get consistent output over a long time period. So we combine that project management layer, which is in-house, make it sit on top of a large distributed pool of our network, and then we give that as a solution to companies. So that's how the assurance comes in from our in-house team, and the flexibility comes from our freelance pool.
Right. How do you make money?
We make money through a typical marketplace commission model. A client will pay me 100, I'll take my cut, and I'll pay the remaining to the talent. Simple.
I think you've been working on Indiefolio for almost 10 years. So, and you started that when you were 17 with your co-founder. So how did that happen?
Yeah, I've been working on it for a decade now, because it takes a long time for you to have an idea and to actually launch a thought-through startup. So it's been a decade since then. We launched officially on 31st Jan 2015. So 9 years we finished last month. I've been very passionate about this freelancing as a career choice. I started freelancing in the 8th grade, where I was doing.
What you used to freelance as?
3D animation mainly is what I used to do. There was this new tool, if your community is aware, they know that After Effects had something called Element 3D. It was a way to do 3D within After Effects, and I was like obsessed over that. I even convinced my parents to not send me on a trip, but buy me that software so I can spend some time. I don't know if I do that today, but back then I was super geeky, and I was like, no, I want to really understand this tool. So I stumbled upon, that time it was called Elance, which is Upwork now. But it used to be called Elance, and there was obviously freelancer.com. And I don't think Fiverr was around that time, but mainly Elance was what I stumbled upon. And I was like, great, nobody will know I'm a kid. And I can say that, I'm running my own studio and I have this sophisticated team. And I was pretty decent at selling. I like selling generally. So I used to just keep on talking to people from all over the world and make small projects. The first project I did was about $5,000. And then I think by the time I was in my 12th grade, I ended up buying my own PlayStation, my own phone, and I had decent amount of capital also, which at least for a 12, 15-year-old is not bad. But the older I grew, the more people I spoke to, they were like, "Yar, ye freelancing mat karo yaar. Matlab, if you want to be serious, get a job, start a business. What is this freelancing? People go to freelancers, when there is no last resort. People do freelancing when they don't get a job." And I used to personally feel that, okay, that's very sad, They also used to tell me that companies will never trust a freelancer. Like, if you want big money, don't, bucket yourself to just freelancing. So I was pretty, discouraged about the entire thing. And parallelly, I was very active on a platform called Behance, if you're aware.
I know.
It's a portfolio site and now a community for designers. It's owned by Adobe now. I was just, I like digging into numbers, and I realized on Elance and on Behance, the number one users are from India. And almost nobody talks about that. Those brands never spoke about that. It was always like, we have European network, we've got an American network, but nobody was proud about the fact that the biggest user base actually comes from India. So when I asked around, they told me India is not good for design. Engineering to kar lete hai, but creative people are not from India. And we freaking made the Taj Mahal. Everybody comes here and says color and wow, because they are so bland. Our food has so much character. So even there, I was like, really? Like, you think Indian people are not creative? So that's when I was like, okay, you know what, if I, and I was also tinkering around starting my startup, because it was the golden time of Indian startups, right? Flipkart's just coming out, Paytm's just coming out, Zomato's really new. And I could see a lot of founders raising capital, young founders raising capital, building large companies. So that's when, I was also tinkering with some ideas ki kuch to karna hai yaar. And this all was happening parallel, in my 11th and 12th grade in my head. I was that time studying in HR college. Suddenly, I was like, hey, what if I just get everybody who's a designer in India on one platform? We are a sizable community. I could see startups in India only building for India. Usually, if you see a company in Europe or Israel or somewhere, they usually end up building for the world because their own markets are limited. But India is an unlimited market today. So I was like, hey, what if I just make a India-focused Behance plus Elance? That was my really immature thought at that point in time. And that's how, Indiefolio basically started as an idea in my mind.
It just started with designers, basically. But now you have other freelancers also?
Correct. It started to design because I used to do design and animation, you could say. Mm-hmm. We are still creative. We're not beyond creative necessarily. We are a little bit more digital now. But creative was the first focus. And I also started off as BananaBandy, by the way. That was the company's name.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm happy actually we changed it, which is another story altogether. But banana was not kela, but banana as in kuch banana hai.
Banana, okay.
I thought it was a epiphany I had when I was 16 years old, 17 years old. And bandy, I just searched something on Urban Dictionary which rhymes with B, and it meant to do things. So, or to share things. So we created a website called BananaBandy. We got sued in 8 months launching that company. And we had to change it. So we then switched to Indiefolio. We got sued because there's an agency which had a trademark on the word banana in India, which in itself seems pretty shocking to me. And by the way, my dad's a lawyer. So he was really confident that, we will win this. They have no say. But we still lost. So we were 8 months into it. We were like, nobody really cares about our brand except me and my co-founder and maybe my mom. So let's just change that. And surprisingly, I had bought BananaBandy and Indiefolio at the same time, the domains. So we just switched to Indiefolio. Indiefolio stands for Independent Portfolios. Mm-hmm. So that's become the name since the last 8 years. Initially, I wanted to monetize designers. I wanted to become like Behance. Oh. So I thought, quirky, cool name will really attract creative people. I still have some people who tell me, why did you change your name? I love that. All creative folks. Mm-hmm. But I don't think I would have been able to even start conversations with serious companies about serious work calling myself BananaBandy. So in retrospect, you're always wiser. But yeah, I think it was a good decision.
Yeah, it was a good decision, I think. So you started this company when you were 17 and you had a co-founder. And from what I gather, a 17-year-old would probably need a co-founder because there are so many things to figure out. And even though you were already freelancing and you were a creative yourself, still, I think a 17-year-old has a little idea about how businesses work. And I think that's when you need a co-founder. But do you think it's necessary to have a co-founder when you're starting out a business? A lot of people say that it's absolutely necessary because you want a co-founder with complementary skills and complementary personality. But again, it has its downsides as well. So what's your experience been like?
So when I thought of this idea, I had no co-founder. I, in fact, started the company myself in a way where I started working on the idea myself. I started designing the user interface myself. I made the business plan myself. It was all very bad. That's a different story. But I started working on it myself. And I met someone called Bala Deshpande. She's a top person in India's investment. And just for advice, I was like, what do I do? Her minimum ticket size, I think it's 50, 80 million. So they are private equity investors. So when I asked her, she's like, first thing you need to do is get a co-founder. And I was like, really? Why? And I'm like, all my friends are pretty stupid, I feel. I wouldn't say stupid, but I was very uncomfortable working with them. I shouldn't say stupid. My friends are very smart, okay? But
I get it.
But I was like very uncomfortable and, I was like, what do I do? And I told her this thing. I don't have any friend who I think can join me here. And she's like, it doesn't have to be a friend. Ideally, it shouldn't be a close friend. She literally told me, who's the smartest person you know? And at that point in time, I was part of a Rotaract club, if you are aware of what Rotary is.
Yeah.
So HR College had a very, very big Rotaract club. And my president, he was Shashank, who's my co-founder now. He was the smartest person, according to me, who I was around, right? He was senior to me. 500 people used to report to him in Rotaract. So he was like, this guy seems like somebody I should go to. And me and Shashank knew each other. In fact, our only relationship has been working with each other because I was part of the Rotary Club and I used to be the guy who makes videos and he used to be the president. So we used to make all these event videos together. So I was like, he's great. I like working with him. He respects my work. I respect his work. So I just asked him. And unlike me, Shashank's super smart. He's an actual science grad. He's done a lot of amazing things. He had a really fat offer also from a leading bank right at the placement stage. But he took 3-4 months because he doesn't jump to things, which is a good thing because I do that all the time. Yeah. He came back and he finally said yes. And when he said yes to me, it was like, okay, I think I do have a solid idea because if Shashank is leaving his job and joining me, I have something which is exciting. So to answer your question, it's a very lonely journey, right? Generally, as co-founders also. At the end of the day, it's just you or one more person with you when you're CEOs or COOs or co-founders. So being alone, I think it's so risky, right? You can be wrong. You will be wrong. You'll make stupid decisions. And you'll need somebody who's able to kind of make you aware of that. So fundamentally for that, you should get a co-founder because if you're calling all the shots at the end of the day, even if you think you're empathetic, you're logical, you're strategical, it's not going to matter because the idea I had in, let's say, October or December, transformed the moment Shashank joined in and we had a meeting. We already tweaked the business model. Today, what we do is a combination of various stakeholders in the company who really contributed. So the idea you have will mean nothing. It's the execution, it's the reaction to the market, which is going to be important. And that's why our co-founder and having more people with you is extremely crucial. So if somebody is building out today, find a co-founder. It doesn't have to be a friend or a relative. It could be. But just ask people, talk to more people who you know, whose work you know about, who you yourself can vouch for saying he's a good person.
I've heard this a million times that finding a co-founder is harder than finding a spouse. How do you suggest people to find a co-founder that's actually that actually provides value? Being smart, I think that's not enough.
I think if I was to start a new company today, Pooja, I think I would be in that mindset, saying, yeah, now I'm wise and I think I'm smart. So I know, what can go wrong. But when I started back then, I was 17.
Shashank was also the same age.
Shashank was 21. 20, he was 20. So I didn't think all this. I just asked him And I think me and Shashank have a beautiful relationship till date. So I guess I got lucky, is what I would like to say. And I know that's not a good answer. What I can advise is that find somebody who you already are aware of. I see people posting LinkedIn posts saying, I want a co-founder. The success rate there will be really, really less, right? So if, let's say we take a hypothetical, let's take AI. Let's say I want to build something in AI, right? And I'm a design guy, I'm a business guy. So I'll need maybe somebody in engineering probably, or maybe I'll need somebody in finance and strategy, things which I'm not very good at. So I'd start looking at that domain and I'll be like, who do I know who's an engineer in my network? My best friends, my cousins, my relatives. I'll start asking them, do you know anybody who wants to start a company or who I could talk to? Always do that instead of you starting a process from a random place, saying I'll DM people on IG or on LinkedIn, because they may seem good, but after 2 years, when it comes to taking a hard decision, you'll need to make sure that there is some grounding that person has, right? Which you can't perceive that till you work with somebody for a year plus. So find somebody in your network who can refer you to somebody, right? Know a guy who knows a guy. That's how you'll be able to, I think. That's a good start.
But on the flip side, are there any downsides of having a co-founder other than sharing your equity?
No, zero. Yeah. I think whatever downsides naturally come to a lot of young people, because I was in their shoes. All are actually features and not downsides of having a co-founder, right? Mm-hmm. Because I have to get my thing approved by somebody every time instead of just calling all the shots. That's a good thing.
That's a good,
right? He will have as much say as me. It's a good thing, So all of those things are very, very crucial according to me. The objective downside, I would say, is that you will have less equity. Instead of 100%, you'll have 50% or lesser or more. It depends on how your structure is. But you rather have 10% of a large company than 100% of a very small company, right? So I think no downsides if I were to sum it up.
How do you resolve conflicts in a case where your co-founder has as much say in making decisions as you and you have contradictory thoughts? How do you resolve those conflicts?
Sure. I think the easiest thing to do is have separate roles and responsibilities, right? So there are certain things Shashank has a final call on. There are certain things I have a final call on. So even if we disagree today, I'll be like, I'm doing it. It's my department. He will say he'll do it. It's his department. We will do our bit to be like, this can go wrong, boss. And let's make sure that your decision, is vetted in 2 months or 3 months or a month, depending on what the decision is. When it comes to things like things which are, executive or leadership kind of responsibilities, maybe making key hires, raising money from people, negotiating on your board of directors or your equity structures with investors, that's something you both have to do together. In that scenario, I think logic is what you need to prioritize versus emotional rationale, right? Mm-hmm. So both of us are really good with that, I think. Again, maybe we are just built that way, but we both always look at logic first. We are very empathetic. We understand where I'm coming from, where he's coming from. And that generally resolves the conflict, I say. Also, I think if you will always find reasonable people and unreasonable people. So if two unreasonable people work with each other, you'd both probably lose. If an unreasonable person and a reasonable person meet each other, the unreasonable person usually will always end up calling the shot, because the reasonable guy will be like, okay, fine, roll your eyes. I'll roll my eyes, but I'll do what you're saying, because, I don't want to sit and, do more conflict with you. But if you're two reasonable people, you'd end up, being most net positive. And I really feel Shashank's very reasonable. And I also feel he thinks I'm very reasonable. So find a reasonable partner is what I would say. Co-founder.
Yeah, that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So, Kavan, Indiefolio is a B2B business, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of our audience is startup enthusiasts who want to start their first, or if they fail their first, they want to start their second startup. And there's this popular notion that B2B is boring. Mm-hmm. B2C is for cool people, but B2B is where the money is. But starting a B2B business is tough because you need a good network. Starting a B2C is comparatively much easier. So there are all those popular notions. I want to go to each one of them one by one. So first, let's start with why B2B? Why did you, you had an idea, so you started it. I don't think you thought that much about B2B or B2C. But do you think starting a B2B business without having a good network as a young person is a good idea? What's the significance of having a good founder network in starting a B2B business, essentially?
See, if you have a good network or if you have the ability to build a good network, it'll always help you. If you are a founder, if you are an operator, if you're an investor, a good network just it's like a catalyst to doing anything, right? If you are saying, hey, I don't have connections within a particular industry, that shouldn't be your benchmark to say yes or no to that industry or to that idea. It should be, am I passionate about this space? As long as you are, as long as you have passion and you've got extremely good obsession and even great domain knowledge about that particular space, you should enter it. If you have these three things, people will want to talk to you, and that's how you'll build your network. The thumb rule I have for building a network is a lot of people do networking without patience, saying, "Yaar, hey, hi, I just met you at an event. Give me a job na, give me funding na, connect me to your investor na, bro, connect me to this person na." Why? Who are you? Right? What's really worked well for me is two things actually. One is you have to be impressive. That goes without saying. If you're not impressive, nobody cares about you. And that'll come through all the bits I mentioned. Your obsession, your domain expertise in that particular space will make you impressive, and your passion. Second thing is I always believe that do something first for the person you want a favor from, right? Always give. Eventually they'll give back to you. And don't put a timeline on that. Just do good. And I'm a fundamental believer that if you just do good for people, they'll remember you. I have done things like helping some senior people in companies get an internship for their niece or nephew in a design college. Have somebody's, son or daughter get help from some big designer I have in my network, which is not related at all to my business, right? It's just a way to maintain a relationship. If somebody wants a contact at a certain bar and I happen to work with them, I'll get that done, right? It's not about my business at all. I'm not talking about work.
Yeah.
I genuinely am helping them out. So I've always believed in building my network that way.
Yeah.
And that generally really helps, at least in the start. Once you have those 2-3 KOLs or key opinion leaders, make sure you deliver very, very well and make sure that you are that you know how to handle a good relationship, right? Communicate with them, respect them, etc. If you do that, they will only open up the network to you, and then it's a compounding effect, or it's a network effect, on how you'll build your own network over time.
I'm actually a firm believer in what you just said. I couldn't stop nodding because that's exactly the way I don't even like the word networking now because it's become so transactional. People do exactly this. They go to like these meetups, meet these people, do the standard method of following up, but it builds absolutely nothing, right? In the long run. And to make a good network, you have to provide value firsthand and not think about work all the time.
Correct.
Just build relations as and when you can. Now we covered that, but when you start a B2B business, the most of your focus is not on marketing, but on sales. But usually, like in B2C, it's different, right? You have to do marketing, which is now the process is pretty standard, social media outreach and all of those things. How did you navigate your way towards marketing or sale in this Indiefolio, in a B2B business?
Right. So let me break down B2B for you, right? So there is B2B deals, which are enterprise deals. Then you've got B2B, which could be SMEs. Then you've got services, solutions, or managed solutions. And then you've got DIY product-led solutions. So Slack is a B2B company, right? But with Slack, the way they would approach a customer is very different from me. I'm an enterprise B2B company,
right?
Which is very different. So first, understand what you want to build. And let me give you an example which is relevant to me, so I can talk the most on it, is we decided to do enterprise B2B because for us, getting a big fish, which gives you increased billing quarter on quarter and repeat billing month on month, is what's important for the way my operating model works. That's something we've identified as a business strategy. And we look at getting enterprise customers only, big companies. who have an ability to spend 1 crore a year, more than 1 crore a year, etc. In such a situation, marketing should come after you do a little bit of sales. And generally, if you're any which is building a product, do sales first, right? What happens with sales? I'm assuming your community knows marketing versus sale, but very quickly I'll kind of break it up, right? So the way I look at it is marketing's like a long-term top of mind recall activity, while sales is immediate. You're knocking on the door, talking to that person and shaking hands. While marketing is all about, oh, there is something called Indiefolio. So whenever a sales motion gets activated, there is some top of mind recall with credibility, validity, which exists, right? So for us, sales is what we did for the first couple of years. The only marketing we did was to get designers on our platform, which was mainly events and social media.
Right.
But with brands, sales is very, very important, because if you nurture a lead enough, you can immediately unlock a high revenue right at the onset. So instead of chasing 500 users, 1,000 users, 2,000 users, chase 5 companies who can spend 20 lakh rupees each on your platform, right? That's more targeted, more focused. You'll get direct 1:1 feedback. And also your input will be not as much as you kind of shouting to everybody. So that's why sales is what I would recommend to start off with. And then you can jump into marketing. We also do marketing. We do something called account-based marketing, where for us, we don't look at, hey, I want to go to all kinds of companies which make more than 500 crores. We really tap into, hey, I want to, let's say, work with company A. I can give an example, let's say Aditya Birla, Sun Life Insurance. I want to work with that company. Then we try and understand their buying committee. Who's the decision maker, who's the leader, who's the champion, who's the blocker. And based on that, we create step-by-step processes, which actually make sure that all of these stakeholders will give a go-ahead to Indiefolio. Right. So that's how marketing is different from sales. And we also merge, we call it a full funnel strategy, where sales and marketing works together to implement the entire thing. So I hope that gives you some clarity.
Yeah, it does. But how does someone get good at sales? I'm talking from the perspective of a 19-year-old, let's say.
If you're just starting with sales, just pick up the phone, man. You will fail. You'll get embarrassed. That's a great way to learn. And I've been there, right? When I was in school, I used to be scared to stand up and answer questions, right? Because I used to be like, I don't know if I said something wrong. But I eventually got really good at it by just failing, trying. Because I was like, karna padega sales. At the end of the day, what a company does to you is you have to get out of your comfort zone. You have to, because your company will fail otherwise. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was a lot about practice. But I'll tell you some tips, which if you Google also, you'll come to know, but they really work for me, is practice your pitch. Don't mug it up. Understand what you're actually trying to say. Because your articulation in what you do as a business is extremely important. Your articulation also to contextualize and also articulate is also very different. You may be talking to a CEO of a pharma company. You may be talking to a design head of a food tech company. The way you pitch your presentation has to be different. Next up, research the hell out of the person you're talking to and about the company you're pitching to. Go to their LinkedIn, find their Instagram if you can. Stalk the company, go to the news tab, see what they are doing, and really study them. So you're extremely well prepared for the meeting. The moment you do these two things now, you'll get so much confidence to take up a call. Things will go smooth, right? Some technicalities, if I can give you, look for something called BANT, BANT, when you're doing a call, which is budget, authority, need, and timing. It's called a BANT score. If you want to understand कि यार ये lead अच्छा था कि नहीं, use the BANT score. Is the budget as per your pricing? Authority, is this person a decision maker or can influence a decision maker? Do they actually have a need? And do they need it right now, which is timing?
Right.
You should ask questions to qualify this. So whenever you're like, kya puchu? This is what it should be able to kind of qualify. So when it comes to authority, for example, I've seen a lot of salespeople forget this, saying, are you the decision maker? Who is the buying committee? if you ask it in a very matter-of-fact way, nobody will feel bad. People will be like, "Aise kaise पूछ सकता हूँ?" Nah, just ask it. He's not going to feel bad. He'll forget you probably after the call.
Yeah.
Right? So that's, I think, some top-of-mind tips for me, I guess, to do sales well.
In the previous answer, you mentioned that you focus on getting a big enterprise on board because then they become a recurring customer, right? So I've seen my friends do B2B, and this is the part where they struggle with the most. So let's talk from the perspective of a 19, 20-year-old who's just started a B2B business. They've bought a domain, they've created a website, right? And now they've created social handles and all of the basic stuff is done, but now they want to get their first client, first paid user. I think that's the most difficult part. So how do you suggest somebody to go about that? Can you like break it down to most simplest points?
I'll just maybe rephrase what I said earlier on. If you're just starting with a big fish first, you need to have credibility. Now, credibility can come in various ways. Either it could be your founding team, either it could be your technology, which people are endorsing. It could be your board of directors or investors or advisors. Or if you have none of that, which is where most people start, is it needs to be generally proof of work you've done with other people before. So you may want to go to an enterprise, but if you have nothing to build credibility on top of, you may want to start small as a strategy, right? Like for me, I worked with 300 small brands. Only then we could go to our big fish. We also have a very odd story. I mean, we were thinking we'll build this, then we build that, then we pivot, then we build this. So I've done so much over 9 years that I always have credibility now in the creative market. But that will be a challenge. If you're just going to a big enterprise and if you're a 19-year-old who doesn't have domain expertise necessarily, you will not be able to convert. So if you don't have that, build credibility first.
By working with small companies.
By working with small companies, because that'll be easier to do. So just wanted to kind of clarify that point. Coming to, I would say, what's the 0 to 1 method, right? To go from sales, right? I'll tell you what you should do is get HubSpot. That's your CRM. And it has this beautiful thing called email sequencing. That's one. Second thing is get LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That's the second thing you need to get. And there is something called hunter.io, which is an email verifier. This is what me and my co-founder used to use every day. We used to write to 100 people every day before sleeping. And it just, we got 99% no's.
Would you just cold email?
But we got 1%. Just cold email. I today send 1 lakh cold emails a month, even today. So it's called Inside Sales. It's a great process for you to just keep on just keep on sending emails. Make good emails. I have very good emails because I really know my customer well because it's been 9 years. I know exactly kya likhna hai kisko. We have about 80, 90 templates which get refreshed every quarter, which go to different people. So just if I can kind of close that thought, how the workflow would work is you go to LinkedIn, you identify your ICP, your ideal customer profile. Once you define the ICP, let's say, for example, I want to go to a CMO in an insurance company, find who these CMOs are. After you take them, you start entering their details into HubSpot. There is something called a deal you can create, deal pipeline. There is awareness, consideration, and conversion. Those are the top things. Exactly kya stage hoga will depend upon your business. Awareness is when you send them an email and they reply back. When you send them an email, consideration is when they reply back and they're like, tell me more. And conversion is when they pay, right? So based on your product stages, maybe you have a demo, maybe you do a pitch, maybe you do an audit, God knows. You can set these pipelines. And you take everybody you're emailing on LinkedIn into the awareness stage and move them as they reply back. Last thing was the hunter.io. So whatever person you want to email, you could just throw in a couple of IDs and it will tell you if this ID is valid or not. Usually it's first name.lastname@domain.com or f last name @domain.com or last name f @domain. There are some 6 to 7 variables. If you just ask ChatGPT, it will tell you today. And just feed that into Hunter. It will tell you this is the ledger ID. And then there is something called email sequencing, right? Where you send an email and it will follow up 4 times automatically. If somebody replies in the middle, it will stop the follow-up. This is like 101 inside sales automation. It's all of this is free except LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it's the best investment you'll make. So just get on all of this, and your sales is started. Next up is create very good decks. If you have a product, show the product immediately. If you don't really have a product but a solution which includes product plus service, have a very nice deck which takes you through the problem statements. Make sure you don't talk more than 10 minutes. Salespeople should hear more than talk. And usually, वो लोग उल्टा करते हैं. They're like, listen to this, listen to that, listen to this. Start with, who are you? What's your problem? Why did you talk to me? Why did you get on a call with me? Right? There must be some insight there, na?
Yeah.
So always we do solution selling is what we call it, right? Solution sell instead of just shouting at them.
So you get on a call with the sale prospect and you hear first their problems and then you do solution selling, right? And great that you touched upon cold emailing. The 1 lakh is a huge number. So from an enterprise B2B perspective, could you tell us what does a good email look like?
No scroll. I shouldn't have to scroll on any device. So if it's on a phone, I shouldn't have to scroll down. People usually think I'll make a nice email, because I think Indian students are used to कि यार बड़ा लिखोगे ना तो ज़्यादा marks मिलेंगे. It's built into us. In fact, brevity is important. The more successful people I get access to, the more I realize they just write 1, 2, 3 word answers to the biggest emails out there.
Yeah.
In fact, there is I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the handle name. Maybe you could put it on the screen. But there is a Twitter handle.
I know what you're talking
called
about.
Tech Mails.
Yeah, something of that sort.
So I formed my style of writing by actually just seeing a lot of emails of successful people. And you'll see Steve Jobs replying to some emails which are like important topics on that Twitter handle.
Yeah.
So it's a great way for you to know how to write those. Yeah, I think there is something called a sales sequence. I'll tell you the right sales structure. Have one scroll content. Usually it should start with a question mark, followed by how that particular question is being answered. And then you talk about your product with one line. Usually I just put one line and then a link to a deck or a website. And then I end the whole email just there. And then I'll follow up twice. I'll follow up 3 times more over a gap of 7 days, 7 days, 7 days. So within a month, 4 emails will go to a person.
Right.
So that's a good structure.
One that's done.
That's done.
Right.
Yeah.
Kavan, so we have talked about sales. I think we've covered everything there.
I guess so.
Right. Now, I want to dive a little more into marketing because the relevance of marketing in a B2B model is neglected a lot of times. So how important do you think that is? It comes secondary to sales, that's what we know for sure, but how important that is still? And then we'll go later into the difference of marketing between B2C and B2B.
Right. So I think marketing is very important. In fact, very large B2B companies, let's say IBM, they have a huge marketing department with very smart people doing their marketing. What happens is the objective is for you to get top of mind recall and build trust and credibility at the end of the day. So if a large company like Air India wants to look at you, will they be confident in giving you their money or their mandate? Because everybody goes to them. Everybody goes to a Zomato today. So why would they pick you, right? That's where marketing could come in. Content and marketing comes together, right? So thought leadership content, creating a content marketing engine is what you need to focus on. Let's take
How to create a content marketing engine.
The base thing is that you need to find key opinion leaders. You need to do some searches to understand what really is a problem statement for that segment you're tapping into and create content around that. Thirdly, and with the KOLs, collaborate with them to make a piece of content. So you may be building HR tech SaaS tool or something like that. Go to one of the leading HRs there or go to an HR publication. Tell them, "Saath mein can we write some content?" They will not give you bhav if you are telling them, "Let's write how to become a good HR professional," because everybody talks about that. Is there something unique which you have come up with, which everybody wants to talk about? Can you talk about that? And then you get a senior HR leader to come in and do a podcast with them, do a co-authored article with them, do a social media post with them. That in itself becomes a very legitimate item, right? So if you're selling to other HRs, they'll be like, "Oh wow, this HR who I know has spoken to this company already. They must be legitimate."
Yeah.
So that's how you kind of go about doing marketing. You have to also remember that marketing also helps you kind of determine the ROI of all the spends you're making, which channels you're using the most as well. So in B2B, your channel could be email. It could be offline events like stalls and stuff like that. It could be webinars or other those kind of not conventional Facebook, Instagram, because that may not work well. LinkedIn obviously is a good place. It's expensive, but you could try it out. So I think get a KOL, identify your KOLs, identify your key problems in the industry, build content with them, and then distribute that content through email, through a newsletter, through your podcasts, your webinars, wherever basically you feel that your clients will potentially be there.
So you understand marketing in all sorts of businesses, right? So how does a marketing in B2C and B2C business look different from B2B?
So I think B2C, all of us naturally understand. Just think about why you bought something. Maybe it's because of social capital. Maybe because it's genuine need. Maybe because, it was like a knee-jerk reaction. It looks too cool to me, right? That's how you do B2C selling. B2B, the same content formats or the same emotion which you want an ad to generate for a B2C customer will not work in B2B. Because B2B, personally, you're not selling to one person. You're selling to a buying committee. That's the biggest difference. So if you're selling me a toothbrush, I'll buy it myself, yeah. I will not ask more than like 5 people. Maybe if I'm buying a car, I'll ask a lot of more people. But at the end of the day, it's still me. In B2B, you can't just get a vendor. So, you need to talk to them, find out ROI, understand, why something works. You have to build relationships with people and so on. So that's the fundamental difference. I may try a brand which looks cool, which may be a week old, run by a 5-year-old. But a B2B company will not do that because they will need to do a thorough investigation to understand if you are legitimate or not. So those are like really big differentiators.
You build legitimacy through past work, right?
Past work, getting more KOLs with you, like I said, building more content around that, etc., etc.
Right.
The easiest thing you can do to look like a big company is to invest into your branding, invest into your content, invest into building an extremely good website, right? You may see something which looks fantastic. How would you ever know if it's run by a 1-person company or a 10-person company? So I know I'm selling this because I do creative, but I really feel creative and content is a way for you to look larger than life compared to who you actually are. It's not going to help you solve a big problem of actually delivering, right? Because this is perception building. So if you have a bad product and if you got an extremely good website, kuch nahi hoga, tumhara dhanda band ho jayega. But if you have a good enough product, if you have an extremely good website, it'll look like, wow, these guys seem to work with the world.
Yeah, the packaging has to be nice.
So I hope that answers your question. Yeah,
it does. And when you say content in B2B, it is everything. It's the blogs, newsletters, and along with social media, right? But I think the relevance of social media in B2B is a little lesser than in B2C.
Depends again. So if you're selling something like a Zoho or a Fresh Desk from a B2B lens, you could use social media because my customers will be on these platforms. So for awareness campaigns, it could work. But when you're talking about like large contracts, if you're a product which needs a minimum of 20 lakh rupees, 30 lakh rupees per annum, then those will give you very poor leads which you can't nurture. So then you may want to try some other channels.
Right. Yeah. Which was your big fish in Indiefolio after you've built legitimacy and credibility? What was that one breaking point when you were like, whoa, I got this company on board?
So yeah, some of the large companies we work with are Aditya Birla Sun Life Insurance, Ogilvy, Dream11, Sony Live, Cipla, Domino's, which is Jubilant Foodworks, and a bunch of other names. We also have Nykaa, Urban Company. So the list goes on. I think we work with over 10 plus unicorns. We work with, I think, again, 10 plus public companies. We work with, I think, 2 or 3 of the largest companies in India who come in the top 10 by market cap. So yeah, it's been a good journey.
So it only happened in the last 2 years.
Majorly.
So your revenue just like shooted up in the last 2 years. Great. I love that. Kavan, that's all that I have. In the end, I ask these 2 questions to everybody. First is, what's the best advice that you have been given in the last 10 years of your business life?
I think one thing from a work outlook point of view or client relationship point of view is always to, undercommit and over-deliver. It sounds, ऐसा बोलते हैं, but when it comes to it, if you undercommit and over-deliver, you will always keep people very happy around you, especially your clients. The other thing is more of a philosophical thing, which, I've got the advice from the great Rumi, and I love his quote, which is, that yesterday I was smart, so I tried to change the world. Today I am wise, so I'm changing myself. And that really drives me to kind of be a better person than be a smart person, because smart people may piss off people, but I have decided to not be that kind of a person, but somebody who's wise. I'll be happier is what I feel personally.
So what's the one advice that you would like to give to a 20-year-old starting a B2B business today?
Sure. So this is a borrowed advice. It's by the great Naval Ravikant, and I really believe in one thing he really said, which is that be impatient with your actions, but be patient with your outcomes. And that's so important because we've actually overcorrected the younger generation, I feel. Where pehle pata nahi hai kab shaadi kar rahe ho, kab kya job kar rahe ho, kya karna hai, oh, very bad. And now it's like kuch nahi pata chalega. And a lot of people, what they've not realized is, instead of being complacent, that's not the advice. The advice is that it's okay if you don't know something, but you must constantly try. I see a lot of people not trying. They're like, nahi pata chalega, it's okay. But are you exploring? Are you doing 10 things at once then? Because if you don't know what you're passionate about, if you don't know what you're great at, and if you don't know what the world needs, these 3 things which will make you successful, by the time you are probably 27, that should be a red flag, according to me, because you have the internet. You can expose yourself to 100,000 things in a day. So what are you waiting for? You're just probably getting complacent because the feedback is it's okay, if you don't know. So yeah, be impatient with your actions. Every day, your input needs to be daily. Your output can come in 1 month, 1 year. For me, 10 years I'm going. So that's one advice I could give to the younger lot for sure.
Yeah, that's lovely. Stagnancy takes you nowhere, really. Thank you so much for that, Kavan. I had a lovely time hosting
Likewise.
you, and you carried this whole thing. I love that. And as you were speaking, there were like so many questions coming to my mind. So thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope everybody would love this episode.
I'm glad that you enjoyed, and thanks a lot for having me. More and more people need to do these conversations, with young founders, so the younger lot also is motivated. When I was starting up, there was only American examples and Western examples, but not something in India. So I hope this helps people.
Yes, it's changing. B2B is not boring. Not boring.
Yes, B2B is not boring at all.
Not boring.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Kavan.